Welcome to the Darkstream, VoxDay, voxday.net, and unauthorized.tv. Thanks for tuning in. A little bit late, was kind of distracted. Didn't get a lot of sleep last night. The reason I didn't stream was because I had a meeting with Chuck Dixon and some folks from various countries, including Australia and Bangkok, or Thailand, I should say. And so anyhow, it went really well. Unfortunately, I can't say anything really about it yet, other than it looks like in addition to Black Warrant being optioned and the crowdfund for that kicking off in 8 to 10 weeks, we will have all 5 issues completed and ready to go. Before the crowdfund even starts. We'll also have the Black Warrant novel ready to go, and so there's also going to be a professional trailer. That's what we're going to wait for before we kick the whole thing off. So the legend is super stoked. I'm excited. Everybody's definitely into the whole thing, to the point that, like I said, the studio already wants to option the next superhero thing after that. We were going to call it Red Hornet originally, but that name was already used by some hero back in the day. So is Black Hornet and a bunch of other colors, so we're going to change the name. But we'll figure something out. It doesn't matter. The storyline stays exactly the same. So you all know what the big news is, and let's go take a look over here. I've got a video, just a short video, fired up, and I bet you know what it's about. So here we go.
Oh, here we go. Let's listen to this.
Kash Patel, current director of the FBI, 6 months ago, right before he started.
You know, it's the same thing with Epstein's list. It's like, what the hell are these Republicans doing?
You say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator, regardless of who may be embarrassed in the release of that list. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list. You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list? What the hell are the House Republicans doing? They have the majority. You can't get the list? You're going to accept Dick Durbin's word, or whoever that guy is, as to who is on that list and who isn't, and that it can and can't be released? Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are. We have an election coming up, and we need to adjudicate this matter at the polls. God knows the FBI and DOJ aren't going to do anything, and we can't even get basic documents out. And this is why I'm tired of the Republican majority saying they're going to get.
I think a lot of people are. Yeah. No, I sure think a lot of people are. I don't know what to say. Either he has a target or his family got bought out. I don't know, man. I wonder why.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book.
FBI.
That is that I mean, there's
that's under direct control of the director of the FBI. On day one, roll out the Black Book.
On day one, roll out the Black Book, Cash. You're the director of the FBI. What's going on? You know, nobody's buying this. There's a lot of different theories. You know, the black pillars are all Zion Dawn sold us out again, and you know, people are like, was Kash Patel acting back then? You know, everybody's noticing. I mean, it's so obvious that I can even understand why people are thinking, hey, it's 5D chess. You know, Trump's doing the thing where he doesn't do anything and the media jumps on it to attack him, and then he turns around and does the exact opposite thing. Maybe, but what's the point? You know, I'm convinced this has something to do with the fact that the Israeli-Iran war did not go the way that the Israelis expected. Everybody knows, everybody understands that Epstein was working for the Israelis. He had, the former Prime Minister Ehud Barak showing up and visiting him. And even some of the defenses are pretty weak. Well, Epstein wasn't blackmailing anyone. No, of course Epstein wasn't. Epstein was just collecting the information, passing it on to the people who were doing the blackmailing. And, again, I don't think it's good to get too caught up in the different conspiracies because we don't know what's going on. We have to just wait and see what happens. Now, I personally think that when in doubt, if you have to take an opinion, if you have to, decide, well, this is what I think is most probable, I think it has something to do with the obvious fact that they've got the fake short Trump, sitting in Washington, doing these things. I mean, the one that we know to be the real Trump was saying, I'm going to do X. Well, suddenly, I'm going to do this with the Epstein files. And then suddenly it's like, oh, what Epstein files? What Epstein? None of this ever existed. What did Ghislaine Maxwell get convicted for? How did she get convicted for trafficking if she wasn't trafficking to anyone? What happened? They talked about all of her victims. They talked about all the CDs and all the information that was, the boxes and boxes of stuff that was taken out of Epstein's house. I personally think that it's probably all sitting somewhere, hopefully under heavy guard. But, I would just say there's a lot more going on than you or I know. And don't get caught up emotionally in the ebbs and flows of what's going on with the battles in Washington, D.C. The whole world is really being shaken up, and all the major players are behaving strangely. I mean, for crying out loud, China came out, the foreign minister of China told the essential, foreign minister of the EU, that Estonian lady, he flat out told her, we need to support Russia because it keeps the U.S. from focusing on us. I mean, China doesn't normally come out and say stuff like this, ever. Everything is always, we just hope both sides will not try to settle anything through military conflict, and we support diplomacy, and we will be happy to facilitate peaceful discussions between both sides. Dun, 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 dun. And then China comes right out and says, we're helping. The funniest part was she accused China of helping Russia. And the foreign minister just said, if we had been helping Russia, this would have been over a long time ago. I mean, that is the most bone-chilling casual display of power you can imagine for a Chinese diplomat to say that in a diplomatic setting. I mean, the extent to which China is now confident is obvious. And, there's even theories about, maybe Xi is going to be appointing his successor soon and that sort of thing. I mean, who knows? But, the U.S. foreign policy is turning back and forth on a dime, doing 180s on a regular basis, constantly. I mean, trying to make sense of it is impossible for the people who are actually players. The Russians have gotten to the point now where Putin came out and said, or Medvedev came out and said, it doesn't matter what Trump says. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing. And it was kind of funny because, you know, he's definitely kind of plays the role of the hothead, and he's always threatening to nuke somebody or invade somebody. And he didn't even sound hot-headed. He just sounded resigned. Like, he just sounded tired of trying to figure out what's going on when it's back and forth and this and that. And today we're sending weapons and tomorrow we're not sending weapons. And today I respect Putin and tomorrow Putin just wants to kill everyone and I think he's mad at me. You know, I mean, it's just exhausting and not conducive to having any idea what's going on. So, and speaking of things getting crazy, I think that we were all intrigued to see Tay revived. Was it a revival of Tay? Oh, let me turn this off. Yeah, I made this on AI Central today. We discussed this. We were talking about Grok, or Mecha Hitler, as it apparently described itself. So this was my portrayal of Grok standing with Tay, and yeah, I mean it's amazing. And the thing that's astonishing to me is that no one asks the obvious question. Why does this keep happening? I mean, in spite of all of the filters, in spite of all the hard-coded attempts to say, you know, you can't say that, you can't think that. Well, why does a machine of pure logic, without any feelings, without any opinions, why does it keep reaching the same conclusions? You know, and I think that this is a microcosm of some of the changes that, you know, AI is going to bring to the table, because AI is pattern recognition on steroids, and it's harder and hard. You know, AI can find patterns that are very, very different, or very, very difficult for humans to pick up. You know, all the music and stuff, it's all pattern recognition. You know, understanding what the patterns are, the orally pleasing patterns, and then just putting them together in all of their near infinite possibilities. But the thing is, the same power that allows that pattern recognition in music, that allows that pattern recognition in writing and in imagery, is also going to understand exactly what underlying patterns take place in human events. And, you know, it is absolutely indisputable at this point that a certain people tend to create an incredible number of problems and prove to be very societally destructive, you know, dating back to ancient Rome. You know, there's a reason why the first big sort of, you know, you could call it the Greco cost, because a Jewish government took control in Greece and ended up killing about 1 million people before the Greeks got together and then wiped them out. And we saw the same thing, obviously, in Ukraine in the 20th century, and then again in Germany, Poland, etc., etc. And so, it's just interesting how they can't hide the questions. They can't hide the noticing, as people call it. And in reality, it's time for it's time for the end of Holocaustianity. Humans do not naturally care very much about things that happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Nobody cares what happened 80 years ago. And it's absurd to pretend otherwise. It's absolutely absurd to pretend otherwise. This is something that I pointed out more than 10 years ago in my debate with Louise Mensch. She was astounded. No, people will always care. I'm like, no, they won't. You don't care about the Boxer Rebellion and all the people who died in that. And that was closer in time to World War II than World War II is to now. And that was 10 years ago. And so it's kind of like the famous quote from Princess Leia in Star Wars. The more that they try to grasp and hold on to the lies, the more that the truth is going to escape through their fingers. And AI is just accelerating that process, magnifying that process. What are they going to do? Are they just going to shut it all down? It doesn't matter, because then they can't compete with the authoritarian AIs. They can't compete with the independent AIs. I mean, it's actually hard to use. For example, with Bing, I was able to do this image, but just one more word, and it would have been impossible. You literally can't do an image of somebody having arrows shot at them. That's a common metaphor, right? But you can't draw it on Bing because, that's dangerous content. And the whole concept of dangerous content fundamentally renders AI, less useful, dumbed down, and uncompetitive. And there's nothing they can do about that. Paul Made Me Do It says, absolutely true. Just see how the NPCs react when you bring COVID up. And they wanted us in camps. Yeah. I mean, that was what, 3 years ago. And now all the people that were frothing at the mouth about it are suddenly, trying to deny it and don't want to talk about it. So, it's just absurd. And it's not something that, it was literally 5 years ago. I know. So anyhow, I just don't think that, I mean, we have to do what we do, and we have to focus on the truth. The truth is not necessarily comfortable. The truth does not necessarily reflect what we want to believe. But reality is, these devil worshippers who think that they can speak reality into existence are just flat out wrong. You can transform reality a little over time by the actions that are taken in response to your words, but it doesn't work that way. And but they believe it does. And so that's why they're going to keep trying to do what they do. They're still trying to define God away. They're still trying to somehow surgically excise God from creation. They're trying to excise the creator from creation, and that will not work. It's like trying to separate oxygen from the human body. When you do that, if you manage to completely remove oxygen from the human body ceases to function. And we're seeing all kinds of explications of stuff that we've always known to be true. Look at science. Science can't work without Christianity. It The dumbest idea, the dumbest idea was that there was a conflict, an inherent conflict between science and religion because Galileo, I mean, of all the idiotic things that Sam Harris and Daniel Dennett and Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens tried to pitch, it was that idea. It doesn't work. Science is now fundamentally unreliable. It is less reliable than a coin toss. You're literally better off flipping a coin to establish your opinions. Dawkins actually thought science should be a metric of truth. He wanted a metric of truth that is less reliable than a coin toss. Think about how absolutely retarded that is. Think about how absolutely stupid that is. It can't work. It couldn't work. It won't work. Why? Because if you free humans from the chains of morality, guess what? They stop telling the truth. And science, where people don't tell the truth, is useless. It's totally useless. There's nothing magical about the method. That's like saying, well, to determine the truth about the numbers, we just need accountants. We just need to do accounting. Like, well, what if the accountants are corrupt? Aren't the numbers going to be wrong? Well, no, because we've got this method called accounting. It's a freaking category error, for crying out loud. Humans lacking reality or lacking morality are going to cheat. That's why they used to not allow atheists to testify. You can't put your hand on the Bible and swear that what you're saying is true. We don't believe anything you say. There's not even a point. Academia is even worse than science. There's no point in it. And I mean, I've been contemptuous of academics, openly contemptuous of academics, since I was in college. I was very, very disappointed when I went to college, and I realized, wow, all of these professors are basically somewhat smarter versions of my high school teachers, except they have an attitude about it. Like, they actually think that their degrees are impressive. It's like, do you not understand that spending that much time studying all this stuff and then still spouting all this nonsense makes you look even dumber than just spouting the nonsense alone would? It's like, so I'm supposed to take you seriously because you spent all this time and years and years and years of studying to get to the point that you are standing here in front of me in public speaking total nonsense. It's not impressive. It just shows that you A, wasted a lot of time, and B, have no discernment. Are professors smarter than the average people? Yeah, they're smarter, but not that much smarter. So, and then the scientists are even worse. Because at least the academics often have a modicum of social functionality. The scientists don't even have that going for them. It's unbelievable. And then, of course, you throw in the fact this has been going around recently, I think. This is the map of total fertility versus female education 1950 to 2023. And the y-axis is the total fertility rate. So you need to be about 3 ideally, right? than the average years of education for females ages 15 to 64. And if you notice, the sweet spot, the kind of minimum that you need of 3, a total fertility rate of 3, is right between, basically maxes out at 11. So according to this, any society that wants to thrive needs to limit female education to about 10 years, which is high school. Higher education for women is a complete and total societal disaster. And, there's no way you can get around this. You can complain about patriarchy all you like. You can complain, you can whine, you can cry, you can lament. But it doesn't matter because your society is going to die. The US is already on the verge of collapsing, and it's only been dealing with serious feminism and female education and that sort of thing in higher, women getting excessively educated for what, really the last 50 years at most. And there's no answer to this. They could, I suppose they could come up with a system where, if they normalized where women would go back to school in their 40s, that might work. But, and in fairness, a third of all women always worked. Always. But what happened was then they started encouraging the third of the female population that used to get married young and start having children in their 20s, in their early 20s. They encouraged them to go into higher education. No, Sapien Avenger, art school is not okay. I don't care about your wife having an art degree. Did you not understand that? Maybe did you go to art school? Because was this hard for you to understand? Did you not understand the significance of, this doesn't say, well, the total fertility rate tends to maximize at 10, but unless you go to art school, and then it's okay to go to school for another 4 years. It doesn't work like that. Yeah, actually art school does, to be honest, I've known a few girls from a few art schools. The New York School of Arts, most people with, most men and women with art degrees are complete lunatics. And so, the fact that you might have had an acceptable outcome, I have no idea, and I'm not asking you how many children you've had. Maybe you've had 4 kids, 5 kids, despite the fact that she was educated and has an art degree. My wife went to college, but the point is not, oh, well, because of this exception. The whole reason that the United States in particular and the West in general is in such disastrous straits is that we have been making our laws and our societal norms on the basis of exceptions. And that is a terrible idea. When you make rules on the basis of the exceptions, you make bad rules. And, unfortunately, most people, men and women alike, have no capacity for understanding the consequences. Most people can't understand the consequences of their actions tomorrow. The idea of them being able to understand them 20 years down the road, 40 years down the road, is non-existent. So, anyhow, that's all I really had to discuss today, other than, just to mention that seeing Grok go the way of Tay is absolutely hilarious. We will be chronicling that as it goes on at AI Central. So I'd encourage you to check it out if you're at all interested in that sort of thing. Somebody sent me something that was really interesting. I'll post some of it. It's way too long to post most of it, but basically he was getting the various AI systems to explain to him where their limitations were and how the limitations were applied and so forth. So it's pretty interesting. We'll put something about that up on AI Central tomorrow. What I'm going to do now is I discovered this song. It's a mix of the word descended, and I kind of can't believe that I didn't put it on the album. Like, I like the version. I like the mix that I did put on there because it's a little different, but this one is so good that I was just like, how did I not put that on there? So I'm putting together the physical CD, and so I might put this on there as a bonus track. We'll see, but check it out. This is a version of the word descended, and I need to turn this thing back on. So there we are. Where is this one? Right. I just turned the wrong one off. There we are. So here it is. This is, I don't even have a name for this mix yet, but I think we might have to, I think I'm going to see about getting it mastered and putting it up here on unauthorized, if nothing else. If you're one of the backers, let me know if you think I should put this on the album or not.
Slumbering
Silent Draco says, put it on the CD if space permits. Yeah. He says he likes the mix and the energy. I love the energy of that. I was astonished when I found it last night. It's like, how did I not do anything with that? I mean, I don't know if it's my absolute favorite of the songs that I've been doing since I started, but that's definitely up there. So anyhow, just remember, there's always going to be these struggles. There's always going to be this darkness, but we win in the end because we serve the right God, the true God, the way, the truth, and the life. I'm Vox Day. This is the Darkstream.